delegates, fellow participants. It's an honor and pleasure to be part of this important panel and to share my modest experience on the issues that you have raised, or the questions. First of all, we are talking here about transitional justice, which of course is not in a vacuum. We are moving from systems of governance, regardless of what type of governance we are working on. We've gone, as you rightly said, for 22 years. We've lived under dictatorship with a lot of stories on atrocities, human rights abuses that can be found on Google and everywhere on documents. And moving from that complex situation to a more inclusive governance and also human rights, we have had to face a lot of, and I think we're still facing, as a country, we're facing a lot of challenges. But personally, I believe that challenges are part of life. It makes us more stronger, it makes us stronger, it makes us more committed to the cause of change. As we go forward, what we had decided as a country was to adopt a reform agenda ranging from constitutional, judiciary, civil service, security, of course, including the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as my daughter has just said, Marianne, from the Minister of Gender. Maybe I should also take opportunity to acknowledge her presentation, which is really brilliant. We had this reform, and also we had land reform because of all the challenges or the issues that were raised that we lived with during the 22 years. Now, for governance, we were looking at the possibility of having from dictator transitioning to democratic governance. We needed to, first of all, learn from the experiences of the past. What went wrong? For 22 years, Gambians just sitting and witnessing all the issues or the difficulties we had. And what we learned from that is the fact that we didn't have systems of governance in terms of strong institutions, competent human capital, adequate resources, and also devolution of power, particularly decentralizing power in the rural, where it matters, because the majority of our people live in the rural areas. So what we did was to start the implementation of the reform agenda. We started with security, but unfortunately we are yet to complete all the reform agenda, implementation of the reform agenda. We went for the Truth and Reconciliation, of course, in partnership with international partners like the United Nations, the African Union, ECOWAS, and of course, other stakeholders, civil society. And in moving forward, some of the experiences, the lessons we learned is that civil society was truncated, fragmented. Most of them were politicized. Therefore, they couldn't really fulfill their mandates. The media also was truncated because of fear of dictatorship. So in order to move forward, sometimes I do say that it's a blessing in disguise. When a system or a country breaks down, it gives hope and inspiration to citizens to sit around the table in an inclusive manner to develop a model of governance that would include everyone and we not leave anybody behind. In this sector, in this process, what we did was to ensure that the role of all the stakeholders, media, the civil service, civil society, and all they're inclusive. And because fundamentally also the diaspora played a very important role in the changing process, we had decided to establish what we call the National Think Tank, where we can provide opportunities for the people in the diaspora who went abroad, not because they wanted to go abroad. Of course, some of them went for greener pastures like education, and some went for economic opportunities and so forth. But many of them among those people went because they were persecuted politically in the country. So that avenue was provided to ensure that they come back. In terms of the Constitution, which is the governing bedrock or the cornerstone of any governance, we are yet to have it adopted. We started in 2020 extensively from here to the diaspora international community, but unfortunately it has not happened. We went again on 2024 also, we tried to adopt the Constitution, but we are yet again to move forward. And in the Constitution, what we decided was to have everything that was missing in the last Constitution, like in term of office, the gender equality, the empowerment of women, youth, and empowerment of citizens. And we believe that we could have built a citizen charter where everything that is talked about or deals with governance, everybody would be a stakeholder and everybody's voice would be heard. Now, for the role of stakeholders, I must say that, just a little bit of digressing, I want to recognize those who played a fundamental role, a pioneering role in ushering the change that we have in the country in terms of transitioning from dictatorship to democratic governance. I want to recognize the inter-party political party that started the process with the participation of civil society, individuals, and so forth. And I just want to recognize on this occasion all those who have passed before today. I pray that their souls rest in perfect peace. Some of them were incarcerated, some of them died in a very brutal manner. And I think wherever, as the chairperson of the National Coalition 2016 that pioneered the change in concert with all stakeholders, I want to recognize and to pray for their souls to rest in perfect peace. As a way forward, we still have a lot of challenges. I am from the civil society. I worked for many, many years in the United Nations, and I thank God for really being neutral, for taking an independent position, because the lessons that I've learned that being in government is always trying to please the executive. I'm a very open person. This is Africa. Unless we are open with the challenges we have, there is no way we can move forward. As a woman, I had a lot of challenges, even though I was in forefront of change. When the change happened, I saw women, the number of women declining rather than, progressing. Today in cabinet, we have only 3 women in cabinet, and the women were in the forefront. We have heard about the broom revolution, where we were sweeping the dictator to leave the country. Culturally, we know when you sweep leaders, wherever they are, community, social or political, it's a sign to say that enough is enough, we want you to leave. Women had this Calabash revolution, but when the change came, we are not seeing women in the process of governance. That's one of the lessons we learned. The other fundamental lesson is that even though we have had all this reform agenda, constitutional, judiciary, land reform, the Truth and Reconciliation, we unearthed a lot of atrocities that happened to our people that we suspected, but we never knew the realities. And there are so many people, victims. Some of our young people, our children, who have been for life, will be sitting on wheelchairs. Some of them one eye, some of them physically impaired. And up till today, they are yet to have the reparation that we adopted. And I think we need to do that. The Constitution, we have paid about 116 million for the CRC, which is the Constitutional Review Committee, to travel all over the world to seek the voices of everyone so that the Constitution can be representative. But it is yet to be adopted. We also see that the security reform, none of the reform agenda is being implemented. These are lessons that we are learning. And as a senior citizen of this country, having a stake and having the responsibility of ensuring that I support democratic governance, I remain very vocal on these issues. I have taken up the issues up to the level of executive, the level of media, and every time I have interview, I raise these issues so that we can come together as a country to ensure that we move the process forward. We also have the security, which is, of course, we have so many security issues in the country, and we are yet to have, we still have ECOMIG here, which is a lesson learned. I think having ECOMIG still in the country demoralises our security forces that are so they're highly qualified, highly committed to the cause of security and protection of the sovereignty. So this we also see that even though we have communications, we have the freedom of communication, of association, the media still is confronted with sometimes harassment and sometimes arbitrary arrest by government. And it is important in moving forward. Our context is very, very, for the next 20 years, our context is going to be fluid. What we need to do is to really ensure that we understand the context and we follow up and we implement the reform agenda, especially in terms of security, in terms of constitutional. The hopes of the Gambian people are shattered because we have no constitution, no term limit, and we are now seeing that the executive, the president, is standing again for a third term. This is a problem in Africa, where the constitution is not respected. Where you don't have a constitution that reflects second term or a two-term governance, we need to have moral responsibility. If we say we are going to have 2 terms, or whatever we decide as a nation, I think we need to comply with that. I want to recognize on this point, at the conclusion, the United Nations system that has really the Economic Commission also for Africa, the African Union, and the ECOWAS. They played an instrumental role in ensuring that we have peace and stability. Because the transition was very difficult, we needed to bring, even though the change, I must say, that was a citizen-led change, without the interference of any stakeholder, international stakeholder. We needed the political partners, the international community, to support the process so that we can have peace and stability. So Gambia is known for peace and stability. Because we are a smiling coast, and you cannot smile if you are not a peaceful country. Yes. But yet we are still, we will carry the name, we will protect the name and the image of the country. But as a way forward, as a senior citizen, and also not only Gambian citizen, but as an African, Pan-Africanist, my recommendation is to ensure that women, civil society, the media, continues to be watchdogs, continues not by violent protests. We have seen a lot of violent protests among the youth, but my advice is for them to really do whatever they're doing, they should do it within the realm of the law. And what I'm also calling on government and African governments is to ensure that they recognize the fundamental rights of people, because constitutional rights of young people, on women and everybody, including physically disabled people, to protest when it is needed. My final recommendation is that there is no country that can walk on one leg. Women cannot be left behind. Young people cannot be left behind. Today we are working so hard, we continue to work, but it's important that we have a time where we can create space for young people to take over. And there is no way they can take over when we don't have really the peace and inclusion that we need. We need also resources, investment in human capital. The human capital is the driver of every change, every endeavor in life. My recommendation would be Africa must continue, Gambia inclusive, must continue to invest in these young people. The young people are dying in the Mediterranean seas, mainly because they don't have opportunities and not much is invested. If you look at the budgets in Africa, including my country, very little is invested in agriculture. Even though Gambia is the backbone of Gambia and African countries, the economies are really, the backbone is agriculture. We have little resources in agriculture. So we need to also invest more in the informal sector, where predominantly women are, provide creative sectors and also include, we have to work in accordance with time, which is also including the emerging technologies so that we can advance Africa. My last note is that no one is going to do it for us. It is our responsibility as citizens to work together. And here I recognize the Kofi Annan Foundation that has been really the teaching board or the teaching institution that is bringing out these issues, that we continue to work together as Africans, as associates. We have a lot of people who are helping us also, whether they are in the Western world or wherever they are supporting the cause. So my final word is to thank all of you for being here. I'll be here with you for the whole day. I would have loved to be here for the 3 days, but I have prior family engagements that I really need to attend to. But please feel free to interact with me during the break or whenever you feel possible, because my role is to advocate not only for Gambia, to remain as Gambia. Gambia is the seat of human rights commissions, people and human rights centers, democratic centers, and so forth. And we have we are small as a nation. But if you go to any international organization, you see so many Gambians in key positions. So we have the human capital. All we need is us calling on our government to create the enabling environment to move from GDP growth, economic growth, to human capital development, which is using the instrument of national accounting system in the macroeconomic system, where you can value the work of women and youth, because that will influence the policy formulation in terms of providing support, gender resources for women and youth. We also need to move from economic growth into human capital development, where we will train our children, our young people and women in terms of entrepreneurship in whatever endeavors they want to undertake. I thank you so much. I'm very passionate about this issue, so when I start talking, you have to really sometimes just remind me. But I thank you, and I hope that I have been able to share. It's short to share everything, but at least in a nutshell, this is the modest contribution that I can provide to this panel. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency.